Volkswagen wants to show us that family hatchback driving enjoyment needn't be incompatible with full EV motoring, and for proof has established its GTX performance EV sub-brand with this car, the ID4 GTX. It's an interesting confection. Whether it really works is another question.
This GTX model's powertrain formula isn't new to the market. Basically, the usual VW Group compact EV rear-driven formula is embellished with an extra motor on the front axle, which brings the twin benefits of extra power, a combined 299 PS output, and, with torque at both axles, all-wheel drive. Disadvantages lie with extra weight and a subsequent reduced driving range from the 77 kilowatt-hour usable capacity battery, the largest available for VW Group EV models of this size. That's rated at 309 miles, 19 miles less than the most efficient single-motor ID4 variant. You'll find the same dual-motor mechanical formula in top versions of the Skoda Enyaq iV and the Audi Q4 e-tron and their coupe spin-offs. What's different here, though, is that Volkswagen has lowered the suspension for hot hatch duties, dropping it by 15mm over the standard models. Combine that with features you can have on a standard ID4, an XDS differential for extra cornering traction, and on the top ID4 GTX Max variant, DCC adaptive damping, and the result is a surprisingly keen confection, aided by near-perfect 50-50 weight distribution, which is just as well given the fact that this car has to overcome the drawbacks of its enormous 2.2-tonne curb weight. That doesn't stop it being decently quick, mind you, 62 miles an hour dispatched in just 6.2 seconds. And cornering is helped by 20-inch wheels with wide 235 section front and 255 section rear tyres. You might be a touch disappointed to find that very little has been done visually to set this GTX model apart from its humbler ID4 range stablemates. But then if that bothered you, your dealer would probably point you towards the more eye-catching coupe-like ID5 GTX model instead. It's even harder to tell this GTX model apart from other ID4s inside, though there's GTX branding on the seats, and if you're determined to set this version apart, you can specify a blue dashboard insert with red stitching. Otherwise, it's the usual ID4 cabin setup with a 12-inch Discover Max, central screen and a digital instrument cluster. At the back, there's comfortable space for a couple of adults. It'd be a squash for three. And there's a very decently sized 543-litre boot, extendable to 1,575 litres with the rear seat folded. At a DC3 100 kilowatt charge point, it'll take no more than around 30 minutes to recharge your ID4 with enough direct current to cover the next 137 miles. Using a 50 kilowatt DC charger, it'll take about an hour and a half to get an 80% fill. Back at home, an AC one-phase 7.2 kilowatt garage wall box would replenish this 77 kilowatt-hour model from zero in about 12 hours, though you can almost halve that time if your property or business can support a gutsier AC3 11 kilowatt charger. If anyone was going to make an all-electric GTI-style EV work, you'd put money on Volkswagen to do it. Maybe it still will. For now, though, this doesn't feel like a car with any sort of GTI bloodline. And that doesn't mean you might not still want one, of course. If the current zeitgeist, or more likely your company fleet policy, has dictated to you that you have to have an EV, it has to be a hatch this size, and it needs to be properly sporty, there's quite a bit to like about the ID4 GTX. Though we'd find it difficult to ignore the fact that much the same money would get you similar sportiness in a more premium-feeling dual-motor Polestar 2, or longer range in an equivalent Tesla Model 3 performance. Neither of these cars, though, nail the visual hot hatch vibe quite as well as the ID4 GTX. In its dynamic aspirations, it's hobbled by the massive curb weight that is currently common amongst EVs, but it does feel usefully more engaging to drive than the standard model. which means that folk planning to spend big on an ordinary ID4 or ID5 should consider a GTX. Otherwise, though, we'd counsel you to think carefully, as Volkswagen should be doing in deciding how to develop the GTX brand from here. It'll be interesting to see how they do it.